To me, embodiment is the wisdom that comes through from the state that you're in. When you're grounded, when you're calm, when you're sitting in that uncomfortable shit and you're letting yourself be present to it. Is there not a bit of wisdom that comes with it? And I think if you can be with that long enough, like, to me, that's really the power of embodiment, is tuning into that wisdom that is present.
All right, here we are. New episode, new office, still getting used to my setup and all the things, but we're back on Emotionally Uncomfortable. So today I interviewed Laura Wieck, and I'll tell you Laura's bio in a second, but this conversation was about embodiment. I have been digging in to just observing patterns that I've observed, patterns that I have observed in client behavior. And this whole theory is you want to feel alive and energized, right? You know this. I've been talking about energy management for years and years. You want to feel alive and energized, and yet your behavior shows me you do not want to feel alive and energized. And then your ego and your mind, and you try to solve the problem from the neck up. And what does it do from the neck up? You say, I don't have time. I can't do it because this person, this person, this person, this person. And what I hear is this makes me so emotionally uncomfortable. Laura is somebody that I have known for a very long time. We've been circling around each other, and you will hear her say this in the interview. And what I love about her vulnerability is she's getting back into a season of her business after years of what she coined as losing herself and raising an autistic son who she adopted during COVID and doing all of this big work in the world, really having the capacity to challenge herself to be incredibly visible and being on stages and doing all of this. And then the humbling path that motherhood and parenthood brings you down. Doesn't matter what season you are in, your children will bring you to your knees again and again and again and again, and they will humble the shit out of you. They will humble you and force you to crack. They will force you to look in the mirror. They will force you to say, okay, you have 5 quality hours a week to work on your business. How much money do you need to make? What is the reverse engineer that income goal? What is the business model that you want to create in this season of your life in order to generate the profit or revenue required? And I see this on a daily basis. Creating a life and then putting your work first on the calendar, putting everybody else's needs first on the calendar, and then wondering why you feel dead inside, wondering why you feel disconnected, wondering why you're not moving the needle. So when you take a moment back, you get radically honest with yourself of what's working, what's not working, what is my soul craving, what does that actually look like on my calendar 7 days a week. This is not about a time management challenge. This is about a soul reckoning. That you are not just one singular person operating in your life, but you are connected to these people that are dependent on you. I think Laura is a really, really good example that it works until it no longer works. And that your body, your physical body, is always speaking to you. And over the years, I have had to learn that my physical body, because me and my physical body, we have come a long way. And back in 2014, when I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, I was like, I'm broken. And then I remember during my recovery, I would always say, like, what's wrong with me? What did I get wrong? Why am I sick again? Because I would, my immune system was shot. And I'm like, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Until I got to this moment where when I experienced sickness and when my body was like shutting down or it was burnt out or overwhelmed, it was like my body created boundaries to get my soul's attention. My body created the boundary to get my soul's attention. Or actually, maybe to give my soul space to get my attention. Because when you are sick, you are left with nothing but time, right? Time and space to be with your shit. And every time you are sick, it is incredibly revealing as to what is inside of you. And I want you to listen to today's conversation. And I hope it just gives you permission that, number one, it doesn't matter how amazing you think you are, or how much work you've done on yourself, or how big you are in your career. Life will throw curveballs at you. It may be a child, it might be your parents, it may be your health, it might be, who knows, the wind changes direction. But you will have to surrender to what is. You will have to say, what got me here is not going to get me to the next stage or season in my life. And there's big grief work around that. There is like soul digging work. There is, putting your soul on the calendar and becoming a new version of yourself and taking the bits that worked and letting go of the rest. And then rebuilding, feeling alive and energized and making more money than you've ever made before, but in a different way. But your soul is constantly whispering at you, and your children bring you to those moments. Your life brings you to the moments. The economy brings you to the moments. Everything outside of you returns you home to yourself if you are willing to listen. So I'm going to read her bio. So Laura Wieck is a coach, a speaker, an entrepreneur. She's known for helping wellness practitioners and heart-led leaders build aligned businesses without abandoning themselves in the process. Laura blends body-based coaching, nervous system awareness, leadership, and business strategy to help people create more ease, impact, and sustainability in both life and work. Her work focuses on alignment, embodiment, and helping entrepreneurs stop chasing external validation so they can lead from a more grounded and authentic place. She works with coaches, wellness professionals, and creatives around the world, and her approach combines the practical business strategy with deep personal transformation. So go check out Laura Wieck. Her last name, Laura, Laura, Wieck, Wieck. Go check her out on Instagram, follow her, send her a message, let her know you listen to her story here. Yeah. And I honestly, my biggest takeaway for you that I would love for you to just think about, ruminate on, maybe don't ruminate on it, but think about it, is just because you teach something, embodiment, alignment, doesn't mean you don't have human experiences where life is trying to humble you, is trying to get your attention. And what is required is for evolution and to do things differently. So let's dive in. And I look forward to getting your feedback. Send me a message on Instagram at Heather Chauvin. And that's it. Let's go. All right. Miss Laura, welcome to the podcast. I always like to tell people, are you ready to get emotionally uncomfortable?
Oh, girl, I was born for this. Let's do it.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how it's like, yeah, I'm born to be emotionally uncomfortable. Before we dive into our conversation, when you think about being emotionally uncomfortable and your work as a professional, tell me what your relationship is to that now, as a mother, as a partner, as a career woman. Like, where are your relationship to emotional discomfort now versus maybe 10, 20 years ago?
Yeah, I would say right now I'm in a state of curiosity with it. Like I love just being present. When I notice a sensation, an energy, an emotion running through my body, I really have done the work over the past 2 decades to just literally sit with it. And instead of trying to move it, instead of trying to make it right or perfect or get to some destination, just sit in a state of curiosity. And I don't know, for me, I think that those uncomfortable feelings and that energy is there to be a teacher. It's data. It's there to
Mm-hmm.
inform us. And I think when we can be present with it and not try and rush it, we actually tap into a deeper source of wisdom that's present for all of us.
I know we're going to dive into that conversation today. I was just speaking with someone this morning and we were talking about, there's this moment, there's this line where you're walking like you're having this push pull with like the past version of you versus like the desires inside of you, like who you want to be, how you want to feel. And I don't know about you, but in my professional journey, like I come from a social work background, a therapy background. There was this moment of choice and decision of like, how do you want to feel in the future? Or who do I need to be right now in this moment? And it's those moments where we need that self-awareness, those moments where you need to be 100% present. And those moments feel like shit. Those moments suck. We want to run away from them. We don't like them. And you have to sit in it in order to go through it. So, Laura, I know we're diving into that today. A lot of the women listening, well, probably 99% of them maybe listening to this episode are professional women raising children. And there's so much nuance to parenting. And I wanted to have this conversation with you because I think you bring a dynamic situation in your parenting journey. And then I want to dive into like, how do you choose to feel alive? Where do you choose to focus your time and your energy when we are gifted very unique mothering journeys? So I'll give you the mic and we'll start there.
There's so much to respond to in that. So thank you. Yeah, like I'm sitting here, just talking about being with all of the energy that is present. You and I met years ago on some networking call, and like you've always just kind of floated around my world. And that question of how do you want to feel? I mean, we share that in common as like an anchor point in our work. But I see so many people that want to skip all the stuff that comes before that, which is actually necessary to even be able to answer that. I actually started off in massage therapy randomly. My degree is in biology. And so I loved like the hands-on healing modalities, but I worked with my clientele was a lot of high performing, professional, mostly women, where on the outside, life is perfect, but then they would come into our sessions and I would literally hear their stories. I would feel how that was stored in their body. Yeah. And I could see like, I have a mentor that said, perform nothing, experience everything. And I could see that performance. And then I got to see this like sacred space where they actually would like breathe and the whole nervous system, right? In that parasympathetic space. I could see the moment when they would return to their bodies. And that led me into, the whole mind, body, mind world. And then from there, I explored coaching and started coaching and can get into all of that. But I want to say that the Laura before I became a mother, and I became a mother later in life. I was 39. I thought I had it all figured out. Here I was teaching this like body mind coaching thing. And, just the body that I inhabit, is blonde. I'm tall. I got blue eyes. Like I fit into that narrative. I fit into a lot of like what the wellness culture looks like. And then my son came to us through adoption after 8 years of fertility treatments, which the irony being, I'm sitting here talking about this whole body mind thing, feeling like my body is betraying me, And then we adopt this beautiful Black child, and he is at the age of 2. This is during COVID when he was born. And we didn't even realize until we came out of COVID that, oh, he's not talking. Oh, like these milestones aren't happening. And that led us down this diagnosis of autism. He has become my greatest teacher because for him, the idea of embodiment, the idea of how his nervous system works is so different. And then not to mention just all the things that happen or how our culture responds and treats him just based upon the body he inhabits. And so my idea of, again, teaching coaching and embodiment, and, I like to say I teach embodied communication. It has radically shifted.
Something that you just said, and I want to kind of connect this through line, and we'll come back to your son, and I want to talk about energy management and time because that's a huge thing I focus on. But the body, performative nature, the last few years, like I've taken actually a pause on, I could tell I was in a transitional state, as we all are. And then you're just like, oh, I've arrived, but I can't unsee it anymore. Like before, I used to believe people when they told me I'm fine. I used to believe people's words. I read human behavior as a language, but I will flat out admit and say, because I would identify as somebody who can't lie. Like when I am feeling something, like it's all over my face. Like I cannot fake it till I make it. I built my whole platform and career on vulnerability because I felt like I was screaming to the world and I was saying, am I the only one who feels like this? And I think with the transition in the last few years and post-COVID, with I'm saying female, all humans, men carry this too. All humans carry this. They just carry the load differently. But raising boys, I have a different perspective of that. But I'm just going to talk about the female body is, when you are intellectualizing your decisions from the neck up and your body is just carrying it and you're like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And you're going to be quote unquote fine until you are not fine. And I just can't unsee that, where I can tell people are performing on a daily basis. They're like, oh, I'm interested in this, but, I'm going to act like this. Oh, I can't do that. It's everywhere. And I'm like, but you can't, but you desire it. There's like that gap in that duality. You want to feel alive and energized in your body. But when I'm looking at it, when I'm feeling into it, when we're working on it, there's tension, there's restriction, there's all of that. So what did you observe or what have you observed? And I'm really talking about that feeling of freedom and ease and alignment, right? Because I'm sure you see a through line from like when you started your career to now, to a woman truly embodying that. Because I think there's a lot of skills, right? Nervous system regulation is now a trendy skill or a trendy term. And then people just keep adding more tools to their to-do list. But what does embodiment truly look like and feel like in a woman's body? How does she get there without adding more shit to her to-do list? Does that make sense?
It does. And I'll share what's coming up, and we can definitely dance in this and explore. Mm-hmm. First, to your comment, just the type of coach that I am, and again, the coaching process that I teach is I listen to the body. I coach to the body, right? My presence in my body is part of the conversation, how the person is present in theirs. And I've gotten really good at, I can listen. And I think part of the reason that I just have so much respect for you is what you shared there about how you are so aligned in what you're speaking. I know that like what is coming out of your mouth is coming from a place of your wholeness. It's not fake. It's not performative. It's not trying to put, sprinkles on shit or anything like that. Am I allowed to say bad words on this podcast? Okay, good.
Yeah.
I figured.
I like sprinkles on shit.
Right? Like you are just, you are you. And I just so much respect for that, because when I coach women, it's funny that you're right. I can see it. I can see it in the muscles. And from my background, I can usually feel where it is in their body, like the responsibility literally on their shoulders. Here's another thing. When people talk, they will point to where the story is actually being held in their fascia, right? So you can talk to somebody and not even have to ask a question, but they'll be sitting here like this. And I'll be like, what's this?
Yeah.
What do you notice here? What's the sensation here? And if that energy had a voice, what is it trying to say? And I'm blown away where it's like, oh, my mom telling me this, and you'll hear, because the fascial system too holds those stories. And so again, this is where it's like all these different things that I was doing. I could clearly see the story held in the tissues. And then with, having a framework to just hold space for people to hear it themselves. Like that has been really the work that I love. But I want to come back to something around what you said embodiment and alignment. And in terms of tools, because I do think a lot of times what I see, and I love that nervous system regulation is like getting all big out in the world, but it's always approached from like the top down, like intellectualize it, and then the rest of it will fall into place. I always joke that trickle down economics doesn't work, and neither does trickle down embodiment. And I think so many women, especially if you're coming from perfectionism or people pleasing, it's like, if I can get this idea of embodiment right, if I can like do the nervous system right, if I can take the breath the right way, right, and do it right, everything else will just fall down and it'll be good. But physiologically speaking, it actually goes the opposite way. It goes from the body to the brain. So for me, just to maybe give us some like anchor points in this, I define embodiment a little bit differently than I see a lot of other people do online, where a lot of times embodiment is like the physical state you're in, right? Like you're embodying presence or freedom or whatever. To me, embodiment is the wisdom that comes through from the state that you're in. Like if you, when you're in those places, when you're grounded, when you're calm, when you're sitting in that uncomfortable shit and you're letting yourself be present to it, is there not a bit of wisdom that comes with it or an insight that comes with it? And I think if you can be with that long enough, like to me, that's really the power of embodiment is tuning into that wisdom that is present. So I want to start there. And then the second thing, talking about alignment. And again, another buzzword, everybody's talking about alignment. For me, alignment is in our bodies, we have three brains. We have a brain in our body, a brain in our heart, and a brain in our head. And those three brains are meant to work together, where how you feel in your body is connected to that sense of purpose and mission, and is connected to the action that's going out. And so you actually have to get back to the body to get aligned. I'll just share the way that I do this inside of our training is it starts with, instead of trying to intellectualize it or get it figured out in the mind, it just starts with noticing. Like noticing the sensations that are present in your body. Mm-hmm. And the key here is to notice it without the label. Because I think a lot of women, like we feel tightness in our chest and we give it a label of anxiety, and anxiety is bad and you can't be bad. And there's like a whole story, and then you have to push through it. And it's now you're making a part of yourself wrong. Instead of just simply saying, I'm noticing some tightness in my chest. I'm noticing like there's a heaviness in my stomach, and just notice it, be with it, right? Usually that in and of itself will start to shift things. If it still lingers, I always love to ask the question, which I already asked here today, is like, okay, if this was information, if this was data, what might this energy be trying to tell me? What is it wanting to reveal to me?
Yeah.
Sometimes something comes up, like if you're new to this work and you're sitting here saying, this girl's crazy pants, awesome, try it. You might hear, an answer later. My dad is always like, I don't get that question, but I'll sit with him and like we usually get somewhere. But usually something will come up. And my next question is that yours or someone else's? Because I think a lot of women, we are internalizing other people's rules. Right. And like I said before, it literally gets stuck inside of our fascia. It literally gets stuck in these beliefs that are stored in our bodies. And so when you're like, oh, I feel like I have to make sure everybody's happy. And I'm like, is that yours or someone else's? That's my grandmother's. Okay, give it back to her. It's not yours to process. Right. Sometimes it is yours. Yeah. And then the question is, well, what do you want to do with that? Or this is where we open the door into, well, when it comes to that situation, what is the energy you want to feel? How do you want to feel in that? And what would it look like for that to come in? How would that land in your body? How would that move? Mm-hmm. Right? And when you hold that energy, right? We all know the power pose, the superwoman, hold that for 30 seconds or 3 minutes, and it'll change how you think. But when you can, like you mentioned that aliveness. Okay, what does aliveness mean in your body? Like, if you were feeling fully alive, how would you sit? How would you stand? Like, what would your voice sound like? How would you express yourself? And if you just start to feel that and live that, eventually what happens is this little brain up in your head, your neocortex says, oh, she feels alive. Let me show her all these opportunities and connections and things that she could do that are going to expand that energy. And so all of a sudden, because we moved through that like muck in the body and that energy in the body, right? And usually there's a point of connecting it with like a sense of purpose and mission. Your brain will get right on board and it'll show you the exact steps you need to do.
I feel like, there's so much in what you just mentioned around, like we see them, we feel them. It's the tiny, tiny slivers of possibility. And oftentimes I will be thinking about somebody, and I have learned over time that there's a reason. And so I'm like, listen, and my clients are usually like, when we get really woo and aligned, they're like, yep, I know why you were thinking of me. And when they're not, they're like, how'd you know? And I'm like, this is the wisdom of the body. But when you are so disconnected from your being, right? Whether it's your physical body, your emotional body, your spiritual body, it's like your heart, all the things, when we're so disconnected and you are just living from the neck up. It's like this robotic way of like, check, 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 go to bed, get up, check, 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 check. So I know we could talk about embodiment and go down that rabbit hole. And we could write a book on it. We could talk for hours on that. Now let's add the layer of motherhood with a child who, oh my gosh, I've like definitely said these terms before, and now I just do not like labels because I think we over-identify with labels in general. Yes, we need them to navigate this world, but when we are like adding these hats and these labels on our children, sure, we need them. And it's just, again, more unique layers of the nuance of motherhood and being in relationship. So your son enters your life and you're like, woohoo, okay, here we go, right? So embodiment, and you kind of like planted a seed there too, because you were like, I'm just starting to feel like I'm back in my body. And even saying that out loud, I hope people are listening, giving themselves permission to like soften their shoulders a little bit. Like, you are not broken. We will have seasons of quote unquote disembodiment, of like not feeling aligned. And that is the beauty of contrast, where you're returning home to yourself. You're like, not this, right? You're like, you've just like fucked up oil and water. Like, you shook your life up. And the fact that you are here having this conversation, there's a returning home and a reckoning and a transition. So talk a little bit about the journey around, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so maybe you could like what your language is around it, of how you fight for alignment when you know you're disembodied. Like, how do we get back to those moments of ourselves while also still honoring our children's needs, advocating for them, and then also, looking in the mirror and saying, I need moments and time and space to return home to myself. How do you navigate that path?
I want to say I navigate that path very messily, very imperfectly, very,
Yeah.
Some days are better than others. So my son is what they would call a sensory seeker. So he is very boisterous. He is very loud. He loves a lot of like deep, like sensory stimulation. He will jump, all this stuff. I have learned that I think I'm a little bit more of a sensory avoidant person. So it can be fun when he is riled up and it comes at me. Like, he needs it to, we call it his sensory tank. He needs that to fill his sensory tank so he can feel like present. But at the same time, it completely pulls all the energy out of me. And, I'm grateful that I have my husband, where we have been able to like, I can be like, my sensory tank is almost empty. I just need to go remove myself. There's nothing else I can do in this situation. He does have his moments and his challenges, and a lot of that comes straight at me. He gets big.
He gets big.
Thank you.
And you were like, yes. Yeah.
His reaction is big energy. And for the most part, I honestly, in those moments, the only thing that I do is I'm like, just feel your feet, feel the earth here. Like, people will look at us and be like, well, he should have consequences and you should tell him not to do that. I'm like, his little nervous system cannot comprehend that right now. The only thing that's happening when he's having a meltdown, it is just about the regulation. And I just have to sit here and feel my feet and be grounded. I'm grateful that I've had this work and I've been able to adjust my capacity. Like, I have a nap period built into my schedule, whether or not I need it. Because a lot of times we'll go weeks at a time with him up like that, and I just have to drop him off and come home and nap before I do anything else. And it took me a long time to let that be okay and not feel like I was being lazy or a horrible businesswoman or anything like that. And only now do I even feel like, because I have my nap schedule and all that, do I feel like I can even ask the question of, what does our family get to be? And I think circling it around to you in this conversation of, what does feeling alive with my family mean? And because the circumstances have completely changed.
Wow. What does feeling alive with my family,
or it gets to be like
or be?
What is the possibility of that?
Yeah. It's fascinating, and I'm sure you've experienced this, and you're definitely will continue to experience it, is like, your kids will get to a certain developmental phase and you're like, okay, I just figured out how to get over the hump of putting my soul on the calendar, putting myself on the calendar. And then everything changes because someone's needs are changing or you're in transition. And I'm still fighting and battling with this like frustration that culturally, when the kids get to a certain age, things get easier, regardless of their abilities or diagnosis. Like, oh, age, independence. And I'm like, that is the biggest fucking lie I have ever heard in my life. And what I've actually observed is the older they get, the more responsibility you have as an adult. And nobody talks about that. And I was like, oh, there's a whole generation that as their children grew and their children had more responsibility or were out there more in the world, or now there's like more nuance and advocacy and all the things, there's a whole generation that just decided to like let go and be like, figure shit out. Let's kick you out of the nest. And I'm like, our generation is not doing that. They swung a little too far to the other side of this pendulum, but it's like meeting in the middle, that this work is never done. You arrive at a door, you open the next door. But you were talking about something of like completely losing yourself and how you had to like recreate, rebuild. And what does that look like? What does aliveness look like with your family? Like the family you have today. I'm curious your first reaction. Do you believe the average person can solve that problem? Do you believe the average person can answer that question for themselves when they are living unconsciously and asleep? Or do you think that takes a level of self-awareness and work to even arrive at the question of what does aliveness look
question
inside of my family?
And what's showing up for me is, I think that they would say yes, but again, I would question. I would be listening to their body like, is that really, really true? And so it might be surface level true. It might be external, like, look, I did this external thing. I'm alive. I mean, for me, I was like, the big goals, speak on stages. I'm going to do that. Like, that's where I was going. That's all that. And then COVID, child, all this stuff kind of happens. And now it's like, for me, that aliveness is just, it really comes back to, I just want to be present and feel all there is in this moment. So it's really, it's definitely changed my idea of aliveness being like this external thing of what it looks like on Instagram, and much more of a, am I present to myself? Am I present to all that is? And that to me is like, I think the real gift in that.
I just heard you say like embodied
Yes.
aliveness, which is not always the bells and whistles on the outside of the perfection and what people see and say and go, oh, must be nice. Or I can understand what you were saying because I have met that edge many, many, many times around this performative aliveness versus real aliveness. And that seems like it's that journey of this stripping away. And of course, when something external happens and it's just constantly, when you said something about the moment of crime, and I've been thinking a lot about this because I'm very aware that like emotion is like energy in motion, but it's kind of like the weather. Like you'll have a rainy, gloomy day. We all know the sun will shine again. But when we're in our like rainy, gloomy, messy middle moments, we just want to get rid of them as fast as possible. And people are usually like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And I'm like, unfortunately, you're human. And when you say what's wrong with me, you pointed to this of like, there's something in there, like pay attention. This is either just a human moment of like, turn the faucet on, the faucet will turn off, or this is data telling you something. And I truly believe that's the conversation we're having is like the more moments you create with yourself to go there, the more you deeply trust your journey of being human and not performing your way through motherhood and life and your career
and I think that
and all the things.
I think that goes back to the beginning.
Go ahead.
Like, can you just be curious to the sensation? Like, just start there. That's it. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to like get anywhere. Can you just be curious with the sensation that is present? Because when you mention like sadness, like a gloomy day, like, I don't know about you, but I love curling up and getting cozy with a book when it's raining. So can you like curl up and get cozy with that energy and just, hi, I see you. And there's not, because I think what happens is women fragment themselves. And like, again, you're like, oh, this sadness, bad. And they shove it away. And then they wonder why they don't feel fully themselves or fully alive, because they have made a part of themselves wrong. And, I know we're coming to the end here, but a great question if you want to play with that too, so one, be curious and notice, but also what's right about what I'm feeling? What's right about this that maybe I can't see? That can be an illuminating question.
We could dive into a whole conversation about motherhood, but I do want to ask you this one question before we wrap up. Becoming a mother, and specifically your son, what do you think he's here to teach you about yourself?
Somebody once called him a Buddha warrior. He teaches me embodied presence like none other. He is only present, full out. If you want to talk about an example of being fully in your body and alive, it is my child, with zero apology. And so I'm just, again, I remember the moment I wished for him. I know that our souls have a soul contract. One day I'll have to tell you about his birth story, because that was crazy. He was born in the middle of one of my retreats. I literally left and had a baby. Talk about questioning motherhood. And so for me, I think he really is here to show me fully embodied presence.
Laura, thank you. What do you have going on in the world?
So I am on Instagram at Laura Wieck, but I gotta say I've been on the Substack train a little bit lately. LauraWieck.substack.com, and I just started a podcast over there. So please, that's probably the best place to go. And I just appreciate being here. If you do come and follow me or whatever, please let me know you heard me from Heather's podcast. I would love to know where people come from. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you, Laura. And just thank you for being honest. Thank you for being real and willing to get emotionally uncomfortable.